This video was made possible by our sponsor, EARGASM high-fidelity earplugs. San Holo burst onto the scene over 10 years ago during the prime SoundCloud era with his remix of Dr. Dre's Next Episode. Many artists who were originally discovered for a SoundCloud remix have gone on to have successful careers, but few have reached the same heights as San Holo. Almost a decade later, he found himself headlining the Kia Forum, a feat that any artist would dream of, but something very few have achieved. So how exactly did San Holo go from having a popular bootleg remix on SoundCloud to becoming one of the most notable acts within electronic music today? To better understand San Holo, we need to take a trip back in time, well before the name San Holo ever existed. Sander van Dijk was born in Zoetermeer, Holland in 1990, and he has personally said that it's the most uncool place in Holland, yet that's exactly what he loves about it. Growing up, Sander was mostly focused on school and didn't really have any hobbies outside of that. But everything started to change when he discovered popular rock music in the late 90s and early 2000s. His dad would play the Red Hot Chili Peppers when they were in the car together, and he discovered more music through the Tony Hawk Pro Skater games, like many other 90s kids.
The soundtrack of the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2, the entire track list of that game is amazing. It's got like Rage Against the Machine, it's got all kinds of punk bands. Everyone played that game from my age, and everyone started skateboarding, and everyone started listening to those bands.
He got even more invested in music by watching MTV music videos after school.
I saw like rock bands on MTV, like the typical. Every 90s kid grew up with like Linkin Park, Limp Bizkit, all those, Rage Against the Machine. So I was so inspired by it. I was like, Mom, I really want to play guitar.
His decision to learn how to play the guitar would dramatically alter the course of his life moving forward, but he just didn't know it yet. Before we dive deeper into San Holo's backstory, let's take a moment to discuss something that is hugely important to all live music fans: hearing protection. San Holo suffers from tinnitus due to overexposure to loud music, and if you've ever been to even a single concert, then you're at risk as well. San Holo actually played a free show in my city recently, which was the perfect opportunity to test out my new high-fidelity earplugs from EARGASM, the sponsor of today's video. So I personally always use a decibel meter app on my phone whenever I'm at concerts, and the San Holo show was clocking in around 105 to 110 decibels, meaning without hearing protection, permanent hearing damage would occur in less than 10 minutes. So imagine how much permanent damage is being done to your ears when they're exposed to live music unprotected for hours. And if you're one of those people that likes to stand by the speakers, then the damage can occur in less than 1 minute. I was highly impressed with the clarity of the music when using the EARGASM earplugs, which was a huge step up from the disposable earplugs that I had used for so many years. They have a 16 decibel noise reduction rating and can go up to 21 decibels in some cases, which is the perfect amount to keep your hearing protected without making everything sound muffled. They were also extremely comfortable and didn't bother me in the slightest, even after leaving them in for hours. The connector cord that comes with the Essentials bundle is super handy, so I can just hang them around my neck when I'm not using them, and plus, all EARGASM earplugs come with a compact keychain container, so you can take them with you wherever you go. Every pair comes with 2 different sizes in order to make sure that they fit your ears perfectly. EARGASM offers a variety of colorways, plus some other unique models like the customizable clicks and the attention-grabbing ear lights. So if you don't want to hear non-stop ringing for the rest of your life and would like to enjoy live music for decades to come, then EARGASM earplugs are the perfect solution. Use code AUDIO10 through the affiliate link in the description for 10% off your next EARGASM order. Now back to the video. As a young guitar player, Sander got involved with various indie bands, but they all eventually fell apart. He was quoted in an interview with Stereofox where he said, "A lot of the bands I played in my teens would usually break up after a while because of all the different opinions, and I got tired of that happening all the time." So you can probably see where this is going, as his frustrations with band dynamics would lead him to producing, but that didn't come until a little bit later. After graduating from high school, he attended Rotterdam Conservatory to study guitar and recording music, and he began giving guitar lessons on the side. He was also in another band around this time, which gave him his first taste of the touring life.
I did a lot of small tours through Germany, sleeping on the floor, playing for like 3 people in a trucker cafe. I remember one tour I did with a band in Germany. We played at this trucker stop. How do you say that? Truck stop. And the promoter was like, "Yeah, well, you have to start somewhere." It's like,
as much as he loved playing the guitar, he felt like he was limited by its possibilities, and he wanted a new musical outlet. Through his studies, he learned a little bit about producing, but his classes were mostly just focused on things like guitar, music theory, and songwriting. Though the little bit that he did learn about producing in college would send him on his own self-taught journey as a producer, with his original inspirations coming from hip-hop. Now, as I mentioned earlier, he had become frustrated with the dynamic of bands, and he liked the idea of having full control over his own project. Granted, his band days weren't over yet, but producing was quickly becoming of equal importance. He finished his first beat in 2010 and called it Layers, using the artist name Casilofi. The name Casilofi was inspired from a vintage Casio keyboard, and he still uses Casilofi as a side project occasionally, with the most recent release being in 2021. After graduating from college, Sander continued to teach guitar lessons while working relentlessly to improve as a producer, releasing a song a week under the Casilofi project.
I was a guitar teacher for 7 years after my during my conservatory, and after I was about to start a new study. I was about to start a new study because I felt like my music stuff wasn't going anywhere, and I was gonna study for becoming a music teacher at a school, which is something I really didn't want to do, but I had to make a living, But still, I was teaching guitar, and every night I'd go back to my place and work on beats and music for till 3 o'clock at night, then sleep, and then go back to the music school again to teach kids how to play guitar. And it was just did that for years and years.
During this time, he was still active in a band, and he was also making beats for rappers and was even ghost producing for other artists. One day when he was making beats for some rappers, one of them, who was his friend named Damien, said, "Yo, San, you need a cooler name, like SAN HOLO." They laughed about it, and then Sander decided to use the name kind of as a joke, not really taking it too seriously. Right around this time, some of the songs that he had ghost produced were starting to get notable attention online, so he decided to heavily focus on releasing his own tracks. In 2013, he released his debut EP as SAN HOLO, called Corellia. The cover art featured a photo of him dressed up as Han Solo from Star Wars.
I remember when I dropped my first EP as SAN HOLO 5 years ago. I was in Holland, and I had a rehearsal later that day with my band, like a 10-piece indie band. And I remember I got into the rehearsal space, and I heard them listening to the EP in the kitchen, which was kind of like attached to the room. And they all walked in. I put up my amp and my guitar, waiting for them to come back. And they came in, and they looked at me. They didn't say a word. They didn't say nothing. They were like, and only the guitarist said, "Son, after the rehearsal, we've got to talk." They hated it.
He released his second EP later that year, called the Demons EP, which I personally think has the best cover art of his entire discography. But even with the incredible cover art, neither of those bodies of work gained much attention, but things were about to change. By 2014, he had basically quit playing the guitar and was entirely focused on producing. This intense focus led to his third body of work, an EP featuring remixes of hip-hop classics, fittingly titled Don't Touch the Classics. Some of the remixes on the EP include 50 Cent's Into Club and Miss Jackson by Outkast. However, one of the remixes far outperformed all of the others by gaining momentum through Hype Machine, which put SAN HOLO on the map. His remix of Dr. Dre's The Next Episode, which featured the first appearance of his iconic swirl sample, which appeared in other songs later on.
Honestly, that song was my ticket to America. My ticket to America.
That's so cool, man.
Yeah.
After the release of this remix, his life quickly started to change as he had managers reaching out to sign him and promoters asking to book him for shows.
People started calling me like, "Hey, do you want to play your music at our party?" And I was like, "What do you mean play?" I never considered the possibility of becoming a DJ, playing records. I never started making music to become a DJ or whatever, and I had to learn it.
However, not all of the attention that he was bringing in was positive. Disney had caught wind of this hot new producer whose name was eerily similar to a Star Wars character, and since they had acquired the Star Wars franchise 2 years prior, they set out to defend the IP in typical Disney fashion by sending him a cease and desist. Which isn't all that surprising given they have a robust legal team with more attorneys than animators, and they've gone after other electronic artists in the past, most notably being Deadmau5. Disney threatened strike fees ranging from $5 to $10 million if Sonder were to continue using the name, but he wasn't going to give up so easily. He disputed the claims based on the fair use law, and he won the case, just like Deadmau5. The funny thing about this is that he doesn't even like the name San Holo very much, and he has said in past interviews that he would change the name if he could, but he had already gained too much attention and was just kind of stuck with it. He originally intended to change his name to Bitbird, but he decided to use that as the name of his record label instead, which he launched in 2014. At the time, he didn't really know how to start a record label, so in the beginning it was really just a SoundCloud account that supported his friends.
I love birds. You know why? Because they're free. They're free, and they fly around, and they can go wherever they want to go. You know, if they don't like this place, they go there, and that's why I like birds so much, man. Plus, they're so cute.
Just 1 month after launching the label, he released his third EP called Cosmos, which was released on Heroic Recordings. This was his first EP that really made it into the spotlight due to the hype from his Next Episode remix, and many prominent American artists were quickly taking notice of San Holo, like Diplo and Skrillex. But Sonder credits Porter Robinson as the one who really exposed American EDM fans to his music, as Porter was playing out some of his songs live at the time. So now that he had Porter's attention, he was able to release an official remix of Porter's song Natural Light, which made it on the World's Remix album. With all of this momentum building up, 2015 was about to be the year that the world found out about San Holo. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, Skrillex took notice of San Holo, which led to him releasing his single We Rise on Nest HQ, a subsidiary of Skrillex's record label Ausla. We Rise became very successful, which allowed San Holo to move up from Nest HQ to Ausla when he was featured on Point Point's track Smile on Your Face. This was followed by San Holo's Monster Cat debut with the Victory EP. San Holo's manager used to work for Monster Cat, which is how he got the foot in the door that led to this EP being released on the renowned label. On top of the Monster Cat and Ausla releases, he had 2 releases on Spinnin' Records, but the biggest part of 2015 came towards the end of the year when he went on his first world tour, which included his debut performance in the United States. The crazy thing is, he was still giving guitar lessons this whole time, so his students thought it was pretty cool that their teacher was also a world touring artist. When he appeared on the Nebula Music podcast in 2018, he revealed that he actually lost money touring during that first year, but he saw it as an investment in his career, and obviously things ended up working out. Even with all the momentum that the San Holo project had gained in 2015, 2016 was about to be 10 times bigger. Not only did it feature the debut San Holo festival performance, but over a dozen slots at some of the biggest festivals in the world, like Coachella and Ultra. He also released a handful of singles, including my personal favorite, New Sky, which was released on Monster Cat just before he kicked off the 16-date New Sky tour. On top of that was a return to Ausla, this time a collaboration with Yellowclaw called Alright. He also released what I consider to be the strangest collaboration in his entire discography, a collab with Jaws called OK. I remember when this came out and I was just super confused because I feel like their styles at the time just didn't seem like a great match, and I'm not crazy about the song personally, but with that being said, Jaws has taken a different direction artistically in recent years, and I actually think it would be awesome if they collaborated again because both of their current styles seem a lot more complementary now than they used to be. Anyway, towards the end of the year, San Holo was brought on as support for the one and only Shelter tour featuring Madeon and Porter Robinson, which is the second time Porter Robinson was a huge supporter of the San Holo project. I'd also love to see a Porter Robinson and San Holo collaboration, but Porter isn't a very collaborative artist, so I kind of doubt that it'll ever happen. Though with that being said, San Holo has gone on to work collaboratively with Madeon in recent years, and we'll talk about that later on. During San Holo's first day on the Shelter tour, he released the single Light, which has since become one of his biggest songs ever.
On the first day of that tour, I released Light. So Light wasn't even out yet. I released Light on the first night of the tour. And I can't remember who it was, but one of their managers came up to me and they said, "Oh, this is your song, right?" And like she pulled up Spotify and she's like, "You're in like the USA top 50 playlist." You know, it's like between Drake and all that stuff.
Wow.
And I had no idea that was such a big thing, because it wasn't the stuff I was thinking about. Like right now, I feel like producers are so in tune with, oh, I'm on that playlist and I want to be featured on that playlist, or I should be on that playlist. Back then, I was just doing the music, touring, but that was a really big deal to be in that playlist, because it was racking up the numbers, streams, and I was just like, yeah, cool. And then it was years later that I found out that moment was really big. Light was really blowing up, and I didn't realize it at the time.
Wow.
I didn't realize it at the time.
Moving on into 2017, this was possibly his most notable year to date as far as commercial music success. He released some of his biggest songs of all time, including I Still See Your Face and One Thing, plus Light was gaining even more momentum throughout this year. He also released Lines of the Broken with Drew Lou, which is a Bitbird fan favorite, as well as another of my personal favorites, Trip from the Trip EP. It's also worth noting that all of the previously mentioned tracks were released on Bitbird, which marked a shift away from labels like Monster Cat and Spinnin'. He also got to play some more flagship festivals for the first time in 2017, like EDC Las Vegas, Tomorrowland, Lollapalooza, and Bonnaroo, plus his biggest headline tour yet. Moving on into 2018, he was set to release his debut album on Bitbird called Album 1, which began its rollout in the summer and was officially released in September. When he appeared on the Excellent Sound podcast in 2023, he revealed that the album wasn't originally going to be released on Bitbird. He was signed to a label at the time, but they didn't like the album, so he had to buy himself out of the deal and pay a penalty in order to release it on Bitbird. This album marked a notable shift in his musical style, as it was when he really started to heavily incorporate guitar into his music, which has now become his signature sound. He basically quit playing guitar for the first 5 years of the SAN HOLO project, and it wasn't until making this album that he began revisiting the instrument that he is so passionate about. The album features a handful of collaborations, including one with Duskus, who was actually the first artist to release on Bitbird, as well as a collaboration with the post-rock band called Caspian, and Bipolar Sunshine. In a 2018 interview with Alicia Fireheart, he told the story of how the Bipolar Sunshine collaboration came about.
So what happened is I met Bipolar Sunshine at Coachella, and we were like, hey, maybe we should make a song one day. And then a week later, we were at my Airbnb in Los Angeles, and we worked on a song together.
Well, was it where you guys filmed the whole behind the scenes?
Yeah, my friend Dorvald, one of my best friends, actually my best friend, he was just there to film everything, because I was like, we're gonna do this album. Why are you not just gonna come and like film every step of the process? Because I want to show people that I'm involved with every step of the process.
Right.
You know? I'm not just like paying people to make me a beat.
Something interesting about the album is that it was made over the course of 6 to 7 months in an Airbnb in Echo Park in Los Angeles, which is actually where he lives now, and he talked about how much he loved Echo Park before actually moving there.
We came across this Airbnb, and it was such a nice place. It was the first place I was at in America where I was like, I could live here, and I decided to write my album there. I locked myself up for 6 months, and made music.
At the very end of 2018, he announced the return of his Casilofi project, releasing the Create EP, which featured 4 old Casilofi tracks that had been remastered. After a successful debut album launch, he carried the momentum into 2019, releasing the singles Lead Me Back and Lost Lately, his only 2 releases for the year. On top of that was a world tour, plus a busy festival season, which is something he had become quite used to by this point. Once 2020 rolled around, he kicked off the year by releasing a single with Broods called Honest, followed by Baby You Okay later in the year. In March of that year, he released the 7-track Stay Vibrant EP, which is an even more laid-back vibe compared to Album 1. For the rollout, he started frequently using the phrase Stay Vibrant, as well as the percentage sign with an up arrow, which is now a part of his logo. If you look at the bottom left of the cover art, it says, "May this boost your percentage," followed by an up arrow with the percentage sign. He premiered many of the songs from this EP during his live stream set for Porter Robinson's virtual Secret Sky Festival. As far as live shows for 2020, he was able to squeeze in a few festivals before COVID lockdowns, finishing things off at Okeechobee in March. And as I've talked about in previous videos, COVID was obviously an interesting moment in time for artists because it allowed them to get creative with how they would continue to connect with their fans. And San Holo pulled off what I consider to be the coolest live stream idea to come out of COVID, a slow motion set. He did this for the virtual Digital Mirage Festival by recording a set where the track tempos were doubled, and once the set was finished being recorded, they edited the video to play at 50% speed, which would return the tracks to their normal tempos, while San Holo moves in slow motion throughout the video. It was so popular that he ended up bringing the concept back for a second time in 2023, but this time with a crowd similar to a boiler room set. Halfway through 2021, he released his third album called Baby You Okay, which featured the lead single that was dropped a year prior. In my opinion, the most interesting collaboration on the album is the song Wheels Up, which featured Rivers Cuomo of Weezer, which is a massive feature for anyone to land, but especially an electronic artist. So after the album release towards the end of 2021, he was back to playing live shows, finishing out the year with a tour for the album. When he appeared on the Willie Joy podcast in 2023, he opened up about having anxiety and panic attacks when he returned to playing shows after COVID, which led him on an inner journey that birthed his third album, but we'll talk about that in a little bit.
And at some point I started getting like panic attacks and like anxiety attacks. I don't know why, but it was just a lot at the time. And there was a moment I was in bed and I thought I was going to die. Like literally, I thought I was going to die. That brought me to this inner journey, which, you know, kind of inspired the whole album, Existential Dance Music. I see that the whole album as like a therapy session with myself, figuring out who I am.
2022 was a quieter year in regards to music releases, with just 2 singles, We Will Meet Again with Jai Wolf and Keep You to Myself. However, one interesting thing that he did that year was releasing 3 different mixes, which can all be heard in the Calm Meditation app. It's called the Stay Vibrant series, based on his 2020 Stay Vibrant EP, and each mix corresponds with a different mood. On top of that, 2022 was also one of his biggest years ever for his live shows, as he got to headline Red Rocks for the first time, plus opening for Elenium at the Gorge, and opening for Odessa and Madeon on some of their tour dates. And speaking of Madeon, he's been mentioned quite a lot in this video, as he and San Holo have been in each other's orbit for quite some time, which led to an incredible last-minute opportunity the following year in 2023. They were both set to play Vision and Color Festival in Wuhan, China, and the headliner canceled last minute, so they got to do an impromptu back-to-back set. They enjoyed it so much that they did it again at Ultra Miami in 2024, as well as Hijinks Festival later in the year. As for the rest of 2023, he released his third album called Existential Dance Music, a clever take on the EDM acronym. Upon its release, he launched existentialdancemusic.com, where he goes into depth about the process of writing the album and what exactly it means to him. I won't spoil it, but it's worth checking out if you're like me and appreciate having context around the music that you listen to. When San Holo did an interview with Repeat, he opened up about the meaning of the song Don't Look Down, which I also thought was worth sharing.
So the song is called Don't Look Down, and even though it's, like I said, a banger, it's kind of about depression. So it's a very uplifting, heavy-hitting song, but it's about depression at the same time. Don't look down, stars will shine on after they burn out. When all of your doubts turn skies into clouds again, don't look down. Like, don't give up, keep your head up. Whenever life gets too loud, there's always a little bit of light inside of you that keeps shining. A lot of stars we look at are already dead. They already burned out, and they still shine because of the distance between the stars and the earth. And I thought that was beautiful. The stars that burn out still shine. And I felt like that was a really good way of saying it. Even though you're depressed or you're feeling sad or you're feeling down, there's always a little bit of light inside of you that keeps on shining.
The album release was followed by a tour, which featured his biggest show to date, headlining the Kia Forum in Los Angeles. As a longtime fan of electronic music, it's wild to see more and more artists playing these massive venues because for a long time it was mostly unheard of, but with the growth of the genre in recent years, it's becoming a more and more frequent occurrence.
I'm a little nervous right now. I mean, look at this. I'm from such a small town in Holland. I can't believe I'm here right now. This is cool, man. I think we made a mistake. Just kidding.
SAN HOLO was also set to return to Red Rocks again in 2023, but the show had to be moved to Mission Ballroom due to production issues. Moving on into 2024, fans got a lot of new music, even though SAN HOLO was fresh off of a new album release. It started off with Glow, followed by What Is Life, which was the lead single off of his upcoming EP. 3 more singles from the EP were rolled out after that, one of which being another surprising collaboration, this time with French house music superstar Chami. In October of 2024, the 7-track What Is Life EP was dropped. However, just 1 month prior to its release, he played what I personally think is one of his most interesting sets of all time, when he played what he calls a wholesome Riddim set at Lost Lands.
I saw this funny tweet of this crazy looking creature dinosaur, and it said like all DJs playing Lost Lands and this crazy scary creature, and then there's the cute dog named SAN HOLO.
Lost Lands is kind of the last place that you would expect to see SAN HOLO play, but the festival doesn't shy away from bringing in 1 or 2 artists from outside the bass music lane, as we saw Madeon play there in 2022. So if you happen to be a fan of SAN HOLO and dubstep, then I highly recommend checking out the set on YouTube if you haven't already. This brings us all the way up to 2025, where he's set to play his first show of the year the same day that this video drops. SAN HOLO has had an incredible career thus far for someone who initially blew up from a bootleg Soundcloud remix, but that shouldn't come as a surprise. He essentially created his own lane within electronic music, which all started in 2018 with Album 1, when he decided to fuse his 2 musical passions, guitar and producing. A pretty big chunk of the EDM scene is focused on making bangers that stand out on the dance floor, which is kind of how SAN HOLO started out, but he has since honed in his approach. His music is mostly written from a place of exploration of his inner self, doing his best to translate the essence of his existence into his music, which is why it's no surprise that his music resonates so deeply with his fans. The SAN HOLO project has continued to innovate for the last decade, so it's going to be interesting to see what direction Sander takes things in the future.
Check out my SoundCloud, bro.
Once again, I want to thank EARGASM for making this video possible, and if you're in the market for a high-quality pair of earplugs, be sure to check out the link in the description and use code AUDIO10 for 10% off your order.